All right, we will call this Board of Directors meeting to order at 7:05 PM. The board has a land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement, which are posted to its website. Roll call tonight. We have everybody here. Stu's on Zoom and Brian's joining us on Zoom as well. But should be here in a minute. Adoption of the agenda. I do want to make one amendment to the agenda to add a 2D for the measures and candidate booklet. Is there any objections to adding that to the agenda? Yeah. Huh? All right, I'll make a motion that we adopt the amended agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, that passes. So first item of business tonight is ratification of the executive committee's approval of the DNR land use agreement. So I'll just start. I'll make a motion that the board of directors ratify the executive committee's approval of the general manager to sign the DNR land use agreement.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that? Nancy?
Where'd they go? Are they done?
Yeah, a large portion of the force that was initially stationed here left on Sunday for other assignments. Apparently they work in small units and then they're dispersed in many directions when a change occurs. A small group of about 20 or so people was left behind to make sure that the last few things were done in containing that fire or making sure that it was out. And those people left Tuesday midday. So all of the equipment that had been moved in was moved out on Tuesday. We inspected and everything was fine.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, we'll call the question. The motion was that the board of directors ratify the executive committee's approval of the general manager to sign the DNR land use agreement. All those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. All right, next item on the agenda is the AGM budget approval. So start passing it over to the Sonia to take that.
So basically what this is that it takes the document that we put in, we present it to you guys over a 2-week period of time with the operational budget and the capital budget and converts them into tables, the standard template that we use for the election booklet, and present this to the membership. The only difference between the what we presented to the board and what you will see in here is on the SURF 2024 ending balance, because what Joel did is that he's reflecting our vote to spend that $71,000 on the trail study. And so you'll see that it's instead of it being 1,650,162, that ending balance is 1,579,162. It doesn't impact anything as far as the numbers go on the consolidated budget amount and also the dues assessments. That is the one number that changed. That's all I have, unless anybody's got any questions.
We have questions or discussion on the budget? Linda?
I just have a couple of them, and Joel, I know, isn't here. Of one of them that I had that we haven't discussed is it was pointed out in here that if a special assessment was made to the membership for the marina slips, that this would be a 6-year special assessment at $9 a month. When would that begin? If because wouldn't there have to be a separate vote for that?
Well, the board would need to put that forward, right? So it's just a matter of what does the board, when do you want that clock to start ticking, right? Like it could conceivably, we could go to an SGM, right, and do it, or we could wait and put it on next year's AGM.
Yeah, I
like
was wondering,
that.
I just was wondering if Joel had done, because this was added in there and it's so specific.
It's just a number because it's part of for the advisory vote, because what we did in this budget is we included the part that doesn't impact dues, where we're saying that if those 88 wet slip owners increase their payments to go towards a capital, that's what's actually included in the budget. And so that would start in January. So that is actually the way that we have it currently. So it would take, motion by the board to change that. But that, it's up to the board, like, once we get these advisory votes, what the next steps are as far as anything. But so no special assessment is reflected in here at all.
Oh, I understand that. It's just, this was something that wasn't mentioned before. I almost wish it was, because it kind of lets people know, but I'm glad it's in here now.
Well, we
just
we
wondered when it
talked
would
about
start.
it, and I think one of the things he had just said it verbally and we, discussed like we should, putting the real number in there, not just mentioning like special assessment. And so that's why we,
Okay,
And
I just
It's
wondered,
really just like a concept, like it provides the membership something that they can wrap their head around, like 6 years and 11.
yeah, because if you say,
Theoretically, the board could ask for 5 years or 10 years, but. this,
And then
like,
up it,
puts
but you'd
something that
have
they
to
can
stay within the budget.
rationalize At least.
Right.
you
yeah,
know,
the
be able to
5-year will
compare.
be too much. That's actually why. So because of the budget limitation and everything, that's why we went with the 6 years, is that we're not impacting, we're not coming close to the budget limitation on special assessments. So it really should be 6 years, no matter what. But you're right, it could go 10 years or whatever. That's most definitely true.
okay, that's all I was wondering. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this gives like the membership that conceptual idea, board will obviously have to, it needs to let the work of staff and, project management stuff to, fine tune the actual doing the project.
The only other question that I have is that by us adopting the budget, we're adopting that payment that's basically our voter approval to move forward with that extra 1,200 a year for the wet slip.
It's our approval, but keep in mind, it is a capital cost. So it doesn't do anything with the dues and assessments, but it's just that line item at the top on the SURF.
Yeah.
So the board can still change its mind. It just changes, the capital funds and everything. It really doesn't, it doesn't actually obligate the board to have to do that if for some reason the board determines that that's not the way we're going to go.
Okay, I just was curious.
But let me be real clear, but that is the plan. It's going to take a vote of the board to do something different.
Different. That's
Right.
what I'm trying to clarify. Thank you.
I mean,
Well, if we're talking about the marina wet slips, it just kind of is concerning when we're looking at doing that extra $1,200. And the wet slips are already from the 93% of marina fees are being used for general operations. So we're already adding to the operations budget. And now there is additional $1,200 that the marina users are having to pay. They're already supplementing the budget. It just doesn't seem equitable. And I have a real problem with that.
So
Many of the operational costs that are necessary for maintaining the marina are not reflected in the breakout. For example, we don't charge the marina separately for mowing or smoothing out the gravel. We need to move hours into the marina out of the recreational department because it's staff centered and homed here that actually work down at the marina on the weekends. So they're hired as part of recreation, and then they're tasked to cover either in the marina on the weekend, or perhaps they work up here during the week. And so those hours have to be separated out and charged separate, differently. So there are operational costs for the running of the marina itself that are not necessarily reflected in the marina's departmental breakout, because it would be too time consuming to go back and say, well, I spent the whole day mowing, but 2 hours of that was in the marina. Instead, it's charged as mowing, that sort of thing.
So I'd like to kind of just address that too. So keep in mind that the $1,200 goes into the capital. It doesn't go towards operations. And that contribution only represents 1/3 of the actual cost for the marina wet slip dock replacement. The full membership would be carrying the other 2/3 of that.
Do we have a plan if a lot of marina patrons say that's just too rich for me and we don't fill our slips?
Well, we checked around and that's actually the going rate at most of these marinas, and that we're already under pretty much fair market value. We're still under for our membership that those 88 people they can't go into Bellingham and get something cheaper. You maybe can go somewhere else. I don't know, Joanne, I know that we did a cost comparison, so we're still within reason, but the fact is, and what we talked about before, is that's what it's going to cost. So these are the options. The options are, if you want those wet slips and those marina docks, we either have to do it where the marina patrons offset it. And one way for it to be more fair is to put up a certain number of those wet slips up in a lottery every year, so that it's not just the same few people, 88 people carrying it for 6 years. So 1/3 of those or half of those could go into a lottery every year. And, other people can contribute towards that as well. That's one option. And then the other is, if we do the special assessment of the entire membership, the only other option is to not replace them. We just don't have any other options. It's going to cost that amount. If we want it, we've got to figure out how we're paying for it.
What do we do if as I asked, what do we do if people just say, I'm not going to pay that, and don't use the wet slip, and then we have half of them empty? Do we have a contingency in the budget for that?
Well, I think at that point, then we would probably consider, why do we even have them? At that point, maybe at the end of the useful life, we don't replace them. Whoever the current board is that encounters that, we probably need to have a pretty big discussion about, if we can't afford to take care of them and fund the replacement and maintenance on them, then maybe we need to remove them and do something else with that area.
Yeah.
I think we're having this discussion maybe for the second time, and I'd like Director Alyanak to weigh in. But something that's come to my attention is that, I'll call it the water district, I don't always remember the entire name, and or the county and or the state, is concerned about Lake Whatcom as a source of drinking water, and that there is apparently some discussion about banning boats, motorboats on the lake. Now, that's not imminent, that we can't put a date on it. But I'm wondering if that's something that will be coming up in 5 or 6 or 7 years. In the discussion about renewing the marina, have people considered that could be something that will come up after we'd spent, however couple of $1 million, however much it costs to bring the marina up to speed? I would just like to hear that, because people have raised it to me, and I know that Director Alyanak sits on what I call the water board. You might have heard something.
That comes up every couple of years. And the last survey that the county, I think, put out on Lake accused. I actually called up the surveyor and said, how come you don't have a choice on there to ban motorboats? Because it's always floating around in the air. And they said, because it won't pass. But, you know, I just went yesterday to a Lake Whatcom Policy Group meeting, and the hot topic was mountain bike trails and trail building. No word about banning motorboats. I don't see any discussion for it. And at the time, back, oh shoot, it must have been 10 years ago, when what was it? The 2-cycle jet skis were eliminated. There was also discussion of banning regular motorboats. Bellingham was against it.
I'm sorry, who was against it?
Bellingham supports keeping motorboats in the lake.
So then to recap, you're not hearing that this could be something that could come up in the next 5, 6, 7 years?
No, I just don't see it happening. I've been surprised before, but I just don't see this coming to
I'm
pass.
sure the last time they did it, they had the largest attendance ever at a county council meeting.
That's right.
Filling out
It
the
was
chambers.
standing room only. We had a boat then. You're right. There's too many people on the lake that have built and put money into their own individual docks. There are people that have float planes. Guy I used to work for has his own float plane down on the south end of the lake. And there's people who have put just tons of money into it. You know, we're really outside of Wildwood, and I think they're limited. We're like other than Blodell, we're the only place that has a marina.
Well, and, I'd like to point out, I mean, it's a valid point, Gail, but the reality is we still have to plan and anticipate that it is going to still be available to us if they're not going to shut that down. And then we have to make decisions to make sure that the funding is there when it's needed. So
I simply wanted to raise it because I hadn't heard it discussed. That was all.
I'm not worried about it. If that helps anybody.
Years and years ago.
I know, but things that I've brought up in the past, and at any rate, we appreciate people's comments on this.
Yeah, I just had a couple quick ones. One, it's unfortunate that the money wasn't put aside to take care of the marina to begin with. Just make that comment. And then I was curious, is Area Z storage rental income, has that ever changed, the income fees over there, the rental fees, or has that always just stayed the same?
It has changed over the years. It did not change this year.
And nor is it next year, I see.
Well, it's not budgeted to change, but that doesn't mean it's not, that it's not being considered for a change.
And when was the last time it was changed?
I don't know that, Keith. It was pre my tenure here.
I'm just curious why we're concerned so much about rental income in other places, but not everywhere. And then the other question I had was, new home construction fees. Out of that fees, is the new home advocate or Joel, is he paid out of those fees? Well, that doesn't seem like it would cover his salary.
it actually does cover his
It
salary.
does.
Yep.
Okay.
He's actually listed on here. I think it's listed as ACC coordinator when you do the breakdown. I think that's.
Nice. So he's listed for
Something like
what he
that.
does. Okay.
Ryan?
Thank you.
Yeah. First I want to thank Sonia and all for putting forth such a great budget that takes care of us and our needs. And second of all, I just want to comment on Gail's point. Yeah, it's a valid point, Gail. It's true. Seattle and Portland, their watersheds are, up above and locked to guard and, have a fence around them. I come from a town that used to have boat regattas on the watershed. And it's not the smartest thing. We don't look very smart to other communities. Yeah, and I think that we do need to be good stewards of the watershed. And I think it's a valid conversation going forward. It is a valid conversation whether or not we are a community that should have a marina. However, yeah, like Sonia said, we need to take care of things that need to be taken care of because that is an asset. And whatever I feel about it personally, and whatever my environmental perspective is neither here nor there. And so as some folks like, gosh, Larry Brown used to say a long time ago, we're taking care of the assets, whether we use them or not. And that's what we've been doing all along. So thanks, Sonia and Joel and all.
Well, and thanks, Brian. And the other thing is one of the options just to remember is that this is to get input from the membership. So one of the options is, the membership has the ability to say to the board that they do not want to replace those marina docks, that they do not want them replaced. So that is definitely an option. And that's what we're looking for is what is the membership? What does our membership want for the long term?
Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, I believe the library lease was up this year. Next year. Okay. Thank you.
And I think, to address like Keith, your comment on like Area Z and the RVs and stuff, like it's bit apples to oranges. There's not like a massive amount of investment needed in Area Z. There's improvements that could be made out there, certainly, but it's not to the tunes of millions of dollars necessarily. And so, I think it's, and then whether what's equitable or not, like, I still think the membership's still contributing 2/3 of the money that's needed to replace the marina. And so I don't see how that's inequitable to the 88 wet slip users. And if the membership is going to pay a special assessment for the entire cost of the marina dock, then there should be a lottery every year for every slip so that no one gets to keep using it year after year after year without some sort of randomized methodology.
And who's making these decisions? You or?
That's my thought.
No, that sounds like you're campaigning against it already. I thought we're just discussing the budget.
I'm not campaigning against anything. I'm saying.
Sounds like it. Just saying. Sounds like you're saying it's not equitable and the community should vote against it and.
No, he
No,
didn't say
I'm
that.
saying
He said it was.
I'm recommending that we move forward with the proposed budget, which is the membership covering 2/3 of the costs and user fees covering 1/3 of it.
Yeah.
And that's what the budget reflects.
And that'll be until January or?
That's when new budget would go in effect, yeah. The equitable thing is kind of addressing what Timmy said, like what's equitable to the 88 wet slip users. Like, I understand that that's a big increase, but when you look at it across the entire community, it's 88 users essentially. And the membership's still going to cover 2/3 of the cost of it. So they're still covering the vast majority of the cost of replacement in the proposed budget. Seems fair to me and equitable to me. And I'm saying if the membership's going to, if we were to just do a special assessment to just replace the marina dock, and the membership just pays for all of it, which is one of the options, right? There's the 3 options. If that's the option, then what I'm saying is there can't just be this seniority system of who's been in wet slips gets to keep the wet slips. That's been a big complaint. We've got lots of complaints on over the years is how those wet slips get used out. So like, I think the fair approach is the proposed budget. You know, it puts the onus on all parties, the users and the. I need them by that.
AJ, I think what you're saying is a little bit misleading in that you're saying that when you look at everybody is going to be paying part of the replacing the marina wet slips, but the marina has been subsidizing the ops for years. And like he said, why didn't we put money away for it? So, you know, his point is very valid.
Well, we didn't do that.
I'm
Because,
just saying,
because the reason no money was needed to be put aside for it is because the estimate of it from going back 10 years ago has been just poorly estimated.
But
Which
it's just
was
a little bit
proved when we
misleading.
hire someone to come out and give us an estimate of what it costs to replace this stuff, and now we see it and they're sticker shock. And that's understandable. When you go from like a $200,000 estimate to replace docks to $2 million, it's a sticker shock. Like,
I will say,
and I'm not being misleading. I'm literally laying out what I think, like, what I see as like the different options. I think the best option is to go with the proposed budget. Everyone helps contribute both with user fees and the membership. I think that's equitable. You know, we could sit here and argue all day over what exactly that percentage of user fees should cover in that cost of replacement, but like 1/3 to 2/3, you know, you're gonna settle typically on some sort of even-ish number, and thirds is an even-ish type of number that you settle on, or it could be 50-50 or whatever, but 25-75. But at the end of the day, like Sonia said, like we have to figure out a plan to get the money to pay for it, or we won't be replacing the dock anyways. And then it could just go to its end of useful life. Maybe it can continue to be scraped by year after year after year somehow or another, but eventually we're gonna have to pay the piper to replace it.
so I just want to say something addressing what you were saying about it not being planned properly. The way that we found out that needed to be replaced was when, we had to replace the boat launch dock. And that engineering company was also the same engineering firm that has been out here under another GM a few years ago and put that report forward. So we feel pretty sure that the general manager at the time was made aware, first of all, that they were not fully ADA compliant. They're not. They didn't even meet full code at that point. They knew that those docks were going to have to be replaced. And he has verbally said that he said the same thing he did to our current project manager, which is that you guys don't have, you did not budget for this number, because right now it was saying $175,000 to replace those docks. That's what and no one brought that to the attention of that board. Nobody's brought it, during that period of time, it wasn't brought forward. It didn't come up to anybody. And that's actually what happened. And so we weren't made aware of it until this engineer came back out and was like, I was out here a few years ago. This is exactly what I told them then. It's unfortunate, but yeah, that's where we are. If action had been taken then we probably wouldn't be in that place, right? It wouldn't be so painful right now.
It's not necessarily painful. Trying to figure out a way to come up with money. What's painful is sitting there saying, let's just get rid of them. That's painful. Just because of lack of oversight from the board, previous boards or whatever. I don't like blaming previous boards because when they
So
will-
we're not getting rid. So this budget actually ensures that the dock will remain. So the way that we're putting this budget that we're putting
Yeah, I get
forward.
that, but we're also sitting there publicly saying that is it equitable for 88 people to have slips? And by the way, it's far more than 88 people that use those, the area now. But so I didn't care for that.
88 lease agreements.
There's 88, yeah, actual slips there, but they do rotate. People do get to use them different. So it'd be more than 88 people that use them, and also family and whatnot. And you have the public that uses the one and so forth. The end dock for the bathroom. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I not close enough? All right. Well, anyways, that was it.
Thank you.
Just a couple of things I'd like to say. When we talk about putting people that now have their slips into like a lottery that they shouldn't have their slips as long as they do, go to any other marina, please, and let me know where there's a lottery in place that if you have a slip and I might not want to give it up, but somebody else on the board decides, oh, we're going to do a lottery and we're going to exchange so many, that's how they do it. I bet you can go down to any of the marinas down there on the waterfront and go, how long have you had your slip? And I bet you people would say 10, 12 years.
There's quite a few that do lotteries. You can look up marinas all on the West Coast and they do lotteries.
I'm talking about here locally because that's what we're talking about. The other thing that I want to say, and then I'm done discussing the marina, is that most of those, everybody that has a boat down there also pays their dues that's going to be paying towards this initial cost of replacing it. So let's remember that, yes, you want to have them pay more each year, but that they are also dues paying members and putting money into that other pot. Just, that's all.
So just to be clear, this discussion about the lottery has nothing to do with the budget. That's another conversation and will likely be for the next board, not this one. I'm just saying.
I'd also venture to guess that a lot of the fees at those marinas down on the water Bellingham cover replacement costs. Which is what's not.
But there's been, I hate to go on about the marina, this is what I mean about short agendas and long meetings, is that over the years, we've replaced parts of those. And in fact, there was remodeling done this year, correct? Wasn't there some work done this year that we approved a capital?
Yes,
Right.
maintenance was completed this year to fix small elements of the docks, missing bits of metal, trim and patching of some concrete, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I was gonna say, and when I used to work for the association, I know at that time there was a considerable redo of the docks done because like you say, they were wood at the time and they replaced stuff, So I'm saying it isn't like they've been neglected all this time, although they certainly could use more love and attention than they get.
We could just not fund them and wait and see what happens.
Hey, and you know what? When we talk about, then there just wouldn't be docks. Even demolition is gonna cost money and probably a whole lot of money.
But you'll pay that no matter what.
But then
It's a
there's
given,
come
just
after that.
because even if you replace them, you pay for the demo before you put the new ones in too, so.
I'm just saying that if you're but that's in the planning process and in hopefully this number that we've been given for 2029. But I'm saying if everybody opts to not have them, it isn't like there isn't a cost, just like if people choose the option of the ice barn of demolition, there's a cost. There's no free lunch.
I don't think anybody thought that. Mine has a
Brian?
Yeah, I don't want to belabor these side points. But yeah, another valid point, Linda, bringing up the lottery system. Yeah, it's certainly, hopefully, future boards will consider it. It seems equitable to me, right? We had that gentleman get up and said, how many years was he waiting for a boat slip? It seems like a really valid point.
Yeah.
I think this is a good discussion, even if it's slightly off the topic of the budget, but just really quickly. If the sense is among some people that that the user should cover some portion of capital expense, is that different from the golf course where I know the capital expense in the golf course is very high and the association, as I understand it, covers it? It's a question, it's sort of like an equity question. Is the marina in that sense considered different from the golf course?
It is in this sense, just because of the fact that there has been no money, no real capital. There's very little capital budgeting that goes on with the marina anyway. This is one of the, there's a few, some of the things that changed in here too. There were marina spits in there, and you'll notice that in your surf plan, the spits are no longer in there. That's because we discovered what we need to do is there's this marina basin repair, but we would not be obligated to do those spits. The work that was done on there are basically lifetime work. So we have issues with marina basin repair. Will deal with erosion control on the shoreline, and then that type of thing. And so, as we move along in this, there's potentially more discovery and that type of thing. But the planning process, we have to start putting a planning process in place. This will be the first time that's going to, feel like this, but moving forward, because at this point we will start to budget this. This now becomes it'll have a proper place in our capital budget process. So in 20 years after it's replaced, the next 20 years, the money will be there. Hopefully. I mean, we're not always 100% right on, but that's part of, doing these planning reviews and verifying that our numbers are right. We've tried to do that every couple of years. I get what you're saying, that there's a large capital cost, and technically what golf does is that they have an operational profit, but they have a capital loss. And it's getting much better over these last few years. Golf's been coming in enough to cover most of their capital expenditures. Golf's at, I think they're at 1.2 or 1.3 million operational profit this year already. So they've increased their income, their revenues over the last few years pretty significantly, and it's helping to offset a lot of that. But with the marina, the biggest expense obviously is dealing with these docks right now.
Another interesting difference between the golf course and the marina is that about a third of the rounds that are played on the golf course are played by members. Some of those members are not from within the community, but the majority of them are from the community. So a lot of golf revenue is generated by visitors from the larger Bellingham area. In the marina, I don't have the ability to analyze the launch passes yet. We'll be able to do that in another month or so. But all but 3 of the wet slips are rented by members of the community, as opposed to folks who come from the outside. So the golf course attracts revenue from the larger community, where the marina wet slips don't necessarily do that. Although the launch dock will do that, and increasingly based on having the actual dock next to the launch area, improving the operations, making them a little smoother. Although this year went very well, actually, when compared to previous years, that could potentially generate additional revenues for the association. So it's just another point to consider in the differences between those two amenities.
I could
If I
see
could
this already
with
going in.
Sonia.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim.
Just really quickly, so you're saying that the 1.3 million excess operational revenue from the golf course then flows into the capital expense?
No, that contributes to our operational bottom line. So all of the golf revenue contributes to that operational bottom line, not the capital. I'm just saying overall, it helps offset those expenditures, right?
Well, I'm willing to drop it. I think it's been a good discussion, one that we need to have, even if we're a little off topic.
And then I just want to say real quick, I hope we're not going to use the launch figures from this year with no launch dock out there to compare how much money we could make with launch.
No, it's just
So that-
interesting to see.
I'd like to bring up a point of, I guess, life safety, liability. at a point, the docks, once we establish that they're having issues and we know it, and then we continue operating and then it breaks and boats get damaged and quite possibly people. And it could be catastrophic. It's like, so it's like, usually it would be some small event, but there is a potential. So once we keep playing patch and Band-Aids, and we recognize that there's going to be a point where we're going to have to, from a safety and liability standpoint, we're going to have to call it and either end it and clear them out, or clear them out and build the new ones, because there is, once we establish that we know it's breaking down in those internal parts, then we have responsibility to deal with that in one way or another.
Same for every building we have. Every structure we own should be that.
I don't know. I think one difference between the golf course too is anyone in the community can go use the golf course. So anyone can get a tee time. Only 88 access cards are given out to the wet slip gates. So that's a big factor. You know, and Joanne pointing out that a lot of golf revenue drives from outside the community too is an important thing to consider. And membership covering some capital expense for golf as it's bringing in large revenue with that capital expense. Is there any other discussion on the budget? Okay. Well, I guess I'll make a motion that the Board of Directors adopt the 2024 AGM budget as presented in the packet.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. All right, the next item on the agenda then is placement of ballot box. So wanted to kind of just start a discussion on this. I think I have some information on it, or
Just that the question is basically, do we want to continue to place the ballot box for the election in the clubhouse? There are pros and cons. Advantages to keeping the location the same as in previous years is that it's the same as in previous years. Everyone expects it to be there. It's also more accessible than other locations which could house it. And it has proved to be secure in that location. The ballot box itself is very secure. You can't really fish ballots out of it or peek inside of it or, do other things to it. It's affixed to both the floor and the wall, and it is quite secure. We also have the ability in that location to place a camera, a special, like a Ring camera, to maintain security and understand that it's not been tampered with. The disadvantages to keeping the ballot box in that location are that administrative operations have moved to the Welcome Center, and we're not able to, we can monitor it on a daily basis, a couple of times a day. In the peak of election season, we would go over and check to make sure that it wasn't chock full of ballots and spilling out onto the floor, which couldn't happen, by the way, but we're not there to monitor it. Have you seen it, Linda, like that? Anyway, and also that most of the traffic that used to come in and out of the administrative offices now comes in and out of the Welcome Center. There is still a lot of traffic in the clubhouse, but people who are just going to see admin don't go to the clubhouse, they go to the welcome center. In discussing this, a third option was suggested. Also a disadvantage to moving it to the welcome center is that our hours are shorter, much shorter than the clubhouse. The clubhouse opens early and stays open late because of the restaurant. So there would be greater access into this inside location. Another option was presented, and that was to buy a different ballot box, one like the county uses, that can stay outside. So they're watertight in addition to being secure against vandalism, and obviously permanently affixed to the ground using concrete and metal. So they're not, you can't steal them. I guess you could run them over with a truck. That would be kind of extreme. I did some web searches. There hasn't been a lot of time since that question was asked, so I don't have a price on that, but of course it is possible to acquire a device like that and have it be an outside structure that's permanently available 24/7. And I can get the costs and refer that to the board. But my thought for this discussion was that people would share their opinions, and we could perhaps reach a consensus as to whether, no, don't worry about it, keep it in the clubhouse, or it might be great to have an outside ballot box. Joanne, please get us a price quickly and bring it back for the meeting on the 14th.
I think it's always been there, and there's a lot of people that rely on that, and it drives them in to get a margarita, and it's a win-win for that situation. So for those folks that like to imbibe, anyways, yeah, I kind of like the idea of keeping a little traffic in there and using what we've had for a long time until we really have a spot that's a great improvement.
Yeah, I was obviously part of that discussion we had a few days ago with Joanne and with NNE. Initially, I felt the way Sam did, that people are used to it. It's secure, doesn't cost anything, extra. But I could see a plus of having an outdoor box. But one question that people raised to me is, the Welcome Center gate closes at dark. In other words, an outside box to be really useful you'd want it 24/7. And in that case, I mean, we didn't discuss another location. I'm just raising it as a
Yeah.
question.
So we had thought that it would be good to put it just inside gate 2. There's that little turnaround right outside the gate of the welcome center.
When you're headed to the tunnel, that kind of area.
No, when you come in gate 2, you
Oh,
can
and you
pull and park. There's a little bit of parking there.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's one entry to the Lake Louise Trail,
Mhm.
and you can pull off the road safely
Mhm.
and get to the ballot box and then pull back onto the road. So that would be, I think, an ideal place for such a thing. Everyone from all the gates could easily drive there and not have to even get out of their car. If they had someone on the passenger side, they could just
Mhm.
reach out and put it in.
Linda?
I gotta say, for now, you leave the ballot box where it is. I wanted an outdoor ballot box originally because that came from me years ago. And there was well, what if somebody dumps something in there and gets the ballots all wet? Or if you have it outside and you can't look at it, I'd have to look at the one that the county has. What I would be concerned with is if you got one that looked like the county ballot box, you'd have, and we used to have far more problems with that. I don't know, Nancy'd have to say, if usually the county is really good, if they find any of our ballots in their box, they will either drop them off at admin when they come and collect theirs, or you meet with them at the end of right before we get up the closure date for the mailings. You meet somebody there and you sign your life away and you pick up the ballots from the county. They have a whole process for when they collect ballots. They don't just go like we do, open the box and everything else. They have to sign a bunch of, they have to sign their name, and there's a whole process they go through. I only went through it 1 year with Lisa Letchworth, and I will never go through it again. It was freezing cold out. And we had to stand there and wait for them to go through their little process to get our ballots, although there were a lot to get. That would be my only concern. But I think that if you're going to change it, make a change for next year. Because right now you have to put where you're going to have everything in the voter ballot, in the voter booklet and everything else. And there's actually a policy that's in effect that says that the ballot box is going to be in the clubhouse. That's all.
So Stu, then Sonia.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to look for another location, but as Linda just indicated, maybe put that off until next year instead of trying to rush it through and get it in this year. Get something set up early in the year so people get familiar with where the new ballot box is and if it's a drive-through location or not. I know things get pretty congested on that Lake Louise turnaround there and gate 2. I'm not quite sure that would be the best choice of a location because the Welcome Center gates aren't always open and it gets pretty crowded there sometimes when the gates are closed. But I would suggest leaving it in the clubhouse for now. And then, if we're interested in doing something else, then let's do an assessment and figure out where's the best place to put it and what's the best type of box to get. And so people aren't pouring their sodas down it or something.
Sonia?
So I would actually agree because I realize that
Hold on.
we're racing to get the election material to UNELECT in about 3 days. And we would want to have, if we are changing the location of the ballot box, we would certainly want that to be in the booklet. So I think the idea of looking at it for next year is a good one.
That's what I was going to say. I agree with all three of you. But I also agree that, yeah, we definitely should look for another location. I am curious though, what would stop somebody from dropping something into the current election? You're talking about outdoor boxes.
I agree. I wanted it outside under one of the covered.
Yeah.
areas in that clubhouse where there's tons of them.
Mhm.
It was just, there was an objection. There was enough of an objection that I was like, I just want the ballot box. I'm tired of ballots being left on where admin used to be. They used to leave them on the counter
That's bad.
because there was no ballot box. It was the responsibility of staff to make sure you get those ballots on the side. Who's messing with those ballots?
Well, so I would just like to put my vote in for leaving it where it is for now, for that very reason, that way we can finalize the selection manual and but look into that. But I would like to see a camera at that location just in case there's any issues.
There was a camera up on that whole reason. There was artwork there that was stolen one year that the cameras caught the picture of the people who took it. So I think there's a camera up there unless you've moved it.
I usually use the outside cameras, so I'm not familiar. I can't think of another interior camera, but that's just because, well, I know there's one in rec. Anyhow, I'll look into it. It's not hard to put a Ring camera out there because we have all the network cabling in the clubhouse. So it's a couple of bucks on Amazon and we're good to go.
Well, is there any objections? It sounds like everyone's in agreement. We should keep it where it is or keep it in the usual spot for this year. And it sounds like everybody would like to see a proposal come through maybe this winter. So that, maybe, springtime, we can try to install something and start notifying the community in advance. I think it would be, I would support an outdoor one. I don't know if there's somewhere
Don't get.
adjacent to the clubhouse, like Linda said, that it could go or something too. I think you could do some cool artwork on it with like the Sun Valley logo and stuff to really try to separate what it looks like compared to the county. But I think it would be good to get something. Doesn't have to look or be the exact thing the county has, but at least have the same security features that they use so that we're following that standard. I'm sure they've done the research on it, so. Yeah. So no objection, so yeah, yes. bring a proposal forward and we'll keep it where it is now.
Thanks for that feedback.
All right. The last item on the agenda then is the measures and meet the candidate booklet, the initial proof.
Well, it's not the proof, it's just a draft.
Yeah, sure. I guess they're gonna lay out the proof after we give them to us, and then that next Thursday, the final proof will come back. So at this point, it would be basically, a discussion on anything, we're looking for typos, that type of thing, stuff like that, but I'll hand it over to Sonia for just a sec.
Oh, I was just going to point out where I saw some errors, and where some of the things need to be changed. So one of the things is, okay, the live AGM Zoom webinar, this is different. It's like what we do here at the board meetings now, because we're having in-person meetings. If they want to participate, they have to come in person. So I think we need to put some language, clarifying language in there so people realize they cannot participate like they have during, like when we were doing COVID, where they could call in and we had the online hybrid AGMs. That is not what this means. We're back to you have to come in person if you want to participate. This just allows them to view it live. And so I think we need to put some clarifying language so they realize.
It's only view live.
Right,
You by not you. If you want to participate, you have to come to the meeting.
right. So that's one. So keep that in mind. And then the other is, one of the things I just noticed, like, okay, when we talk about the executive summary and we go, on this, let's see, page 9, under additional budgeting information, it just is, it talks about at the end of the third paragraph or the first paragraph under additional budgeting information, at the very end, what it says is in 2019, the members passed the following bylaw amendment to Article 3C, Section 19 for reasonable limitations on annual dues and assessment increases. That language was left over from last year because we put the entire bylaw into there, but it's been removed this time. And so I'd like to change that where it just reads, in 2019, the members passed a bylaw amendment to Article 3C, Section 19, placing reasonable limitations on annual dues and assessment increases, just so it's referencing that we have the bylaw limitation. And then the only other things obviously is for any discussion on the advisory vote. The attorney did review them, and this is, he's approved this. And then the other is just those on the back page were methods of voting in red, because that's information I guess NNE is going to have to clarify those dates and everything. Okay, so there's my comments.
You have different language for the date to do the mailing. That's like,
Okay, so yeah, just this is as long as you give it to, do you have that other language?
we'll be good.
And when do you think you could send that?
Right?
Can you send that tonight
I'll
or?
send you everything tomorrow morning. I have everything I need but photos.
Well, so how did that pass by Unilec? Because Joanne is the contact with Unilec.
And then he was, it was pretty much the aftermath of the last election. We had many opportunities to, be in conversation with Unilec. And as I recall, something like 70 or 80 ballots were too late. I'm sorry, thank you. I think that's what you mean. I'm not speaking into this thing. I believe 70 or 80 ballots arrived at Unilec and too late. In fact, people were mailing them. They were actually postmarked like the day before the AGM. So there was just discussion of, could Unilec do the mailing earlier? Do we need a notice within the booklet and on the return envelope, to try and get your, make sure that I think the way it goes, I had it in front of me a moment ago, is at any rate, if it's after October 20th, don't put these in the mail, use the Dropbox. Because after October 20th, things may not reach California. That was the discussion. And then it could be put on the actual envelope so that people, as they start to drop it in a mailbox, they wait, but it's October 25th, maybe it's too late. It's not here. I mean,
No, I'm just looking to see what it was. So I guess I suppose give that language to Joanne. And then moving forward, though, we're clear that the communications go through the general manager to Unilect, right?
that's the
When-
current contract, and I am happy to work with Joanne. I think things are going as smoothly as they can, given a
Awesome.
tight deadline.
Is it prudent for us to advise the membership on when they should be mailing it? To me, it seems better to provide them the deadline that they need to have it to, and it's.
You know, that could be in the
Uh-oh.
October views. We don't have that deadline for the views yet, but that could be a nice, kind of box in the views to remind people. Partly maybe to say a line or two about the number of ballots that didn't get counted last year because people simply mailed them too late. And then to give, I have the language here, if you want to hear it, and it's just,
Okay, well, I think that AJ's concern is that if we give a specific date, we're potentially accepting liability if they mail it before that date and then there's a foul up by the post office.
oh,
I think just in the ballot pamphlet, we should give them the deadline. They need to have it to Unilect by. But I don't see any issue with if there's a views, we can try to make suggestions of that type of stuff, but in like the official pamphlet, I think we should use that like part
And
deadline.
it will go in the official pamphlet and on the back of the election envelope. So that as you start to dump it in the mailbox, it's like, oops.
But that's what he's saying, because there's a problem, because then we're incurring the liability if there's a problem with the postal service.
Yeah.
If we say you have to postmark it by so-and-so date and they do that and we still don't receive it, then that's a problem. They could potentially challenge. I would think because we've now promised them we would count it if it had a postmark by that date.
Because what we're
Yeah,
talking
and
about
I
is
know,
section
somehow
A
it
in the
becomes a
methods of
liability.
voting,
I
right?
just sometimes miss it. That's all. If you want to pass it by the attorney or maybe just leave it. I think it's great though to have it on the envelope. I mean, we did lose so many votes last year that, and elections were close. But if there's a liability issue,
A lot of those, I'd just like to point out, plenty of those actually were postmarked after the election. There was a
No,
large
not
number
after,
of
a
them that
year or
were
two
postmarked
before.
after,
that's the problem.
and or the day of. It was a significant number that would have never made it.
Because the language we're talking about, right, is in the methods of voting under A. Vote by mail. We're telling people your mail-in ballot must be received by mail in Unilect's post office box no later than this date.
AJ, I
And-
think whatever you're looking at, which I don't have,
AJ,
is
I-
from last year, isn't it? It's
I
not-
thought that date was going to be on Friday at 10 a.m. I thought that
This-
was.
this
what
section
was in
hasn't-
the contract.
This
Steve,
hasn't been
didn't you-
updated.
says Friday.
Oh, okay, great.
The red text still needs to be like
Yeah,
Okay,
it's just tentative.
updated with the appropriate date time.
okay.
That's why it's in red.
I
Sorry.
have a question for Nancy. Is this 4:30 PM on Thursday, the date that you used last year? Because that might have something to do why so many late ballots came in. Although I must say that when they used to mail them all here, there were times I used to have stacks of them. But I'm just saying, if I thought I understood that last year Unilect did the cutoff early on that Thursday, and that might have something to do with receiving more late ballots because it was past that time. And I think Michael described it earlier this year where our bylaws say it has to be on Friday. And I know it might be easier for Unilect to do it on Thursday and then come up here and fly up, but that isn't what our bylaws say, and they've agreed to follow our bylaws. And
Well-
I understand their cutoff, which is noon. They can't, that's something for them when they go to the post office and do whatever they have to do to get their ballots. But it should be a Friday, not a Thursday.
Yeah, this is just a
I know,
draft
I'm just.
that for NNE needs to provide the correct information.
But it makes me, after seeing that date in there and going,
Linda,
I wasn't here.
Michael voted to change the date to that Thursday because in any committee, because the chaos in the airports during that time period made it impossible for Unilac to get on an airplane on Friday, well, to pick up the envelopes and make a flight out of LAX. Now, it's better now, but in that particular time period, it was not possible for them to do it.
Okay, it was something that for me is like, no, it's always on a Friday. And then I just noticed that since I mailed mine here, it didn't apply to me.
Yeah, so this should reflect whatever the agreement is, the contract, and then whatever it is that you guys need to put in there.
Yeah, I was looking at page 18. Right now, even the information about mailing dates appears to be part of return proxy forms. So there'll be a little bit of clarification there. It's returning the ballots that we want. I think it will be fine, Sonia.
Just wondering, kind of backtracking to, when Gail was saying, can we put, get your vote in by a certain date? Can we just put something simple like remember to mail early, or like something like that? Try to get like mail early to make sure your vote counts. Something that's a bit generic, that it's just on the bottom of the outside or somewhere.
But see, early is so non-specific.
I know, but people want to take liability. Is there
Well-
something generic, kind of remind people? It's just a thought.
The language maybe could be changed. It wasn't too.
Yes. One of my favorites.
Well, AJ is willing to put it into the booklet, which is good. I just liked the idea of putting on the envelope.
Oh, it's
you know.
on the back.
We'll see. I'll send it to Joanne and you guys can.
So one thing too, just
And at the end of the day, you can't hold everyone's hand through.
It was
You're
all
grown
over
ups,
the
part of Being
views,
a grown
too.
up is voting. Like,
oh,
we all do it for federal, state, local elections. This is just another one to add to the list. Like, I don't think, people need to be, just give them the date. Let people do it.
so the proxies are a little different. They actually do have to be turned in earlier because there's a process that we have to put in place and verify whoever their representatives are and everything. And the attorney, Nancy, is that right? Like, I think we have some documentation from last year where he told us to get those proxies in early, and that allows us to process, and then we have to give that proxy the ability to come in on Saturday or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it works.
Yeah, the attorney approved what we put down for the proxy process. I asked a bunch of questions, as did Linda, because it came up when she was in it too. And the attorney gave answers. I don't think we said, you design it for us,
No, we
Mr.
have to-
Attorney. We said, this is what we want. It said, okay.
So I think we just verified that date and time, but I feel like that one did have to be earlier, if I remember, because there's some process that we had to go through, but it's in the documents. We'll find the documents.
We just, nobody ever, okay. The only person who asked for forms was me, just to see if the system worked. Both when I was NNG chair and when Linda was chair. I mailed and I did get the form as I was supposed to, but believe me, I never filed for an actual proxy. I just wanted to be sure that if somebody asked for one, they couldn't say, oh, you ignored it. Because I would have an
Be mailed
example
out of-
to say it worked.
of admin
Mhm.
and stuff to be able to get stamped and everything else with going to somebody to get their.
I used October 1st as when you can start obtaining the forms. And I don't think that needs to be changed because it's just the same date every year then. And it's in plenty of time to get it activated. nobody is, I can't imagine why anybody would go through the proxy system when it is so very easy to vote by mail.
In the legislature. That's where, am I wrong, AJ? Didn't you, isn't that what you sent me when,
Harder to correct.
yeah. He sent me that at the last minute going, Richard says we need this. And I'm like,
Yeah, that was a fun one.
uh-huh. So whenever we're done discussing all this, I've got some things I want people to look at.
Okay, so basically what's going to happen is, Joanne, you're going to work with Gail and NNE on this last page, right? The methods of voting
Last two, 17 and 18.
and fix all of,
And then the bios.
okay. So, all right, so everything that's got to do with the bios and the picks and the method of voting and the dates, Joanne and Gail are going to work on. Okay.
Gail, you were so lucky. I did it all myself last year.
Just,
It's always a lot of
To-
work.
just to
We did not get
clarify, so you were talking about the Zoom link or whatever. Above that, we have that little asterisk that says, in order to give all members who wish to speak an opportunity to do so, blah, blah. Maybe we can add something to that sentence that just says like, you need to be you need to be in person.
It's not an agenda.
Yeah, what-
The agenda. It's not.
It would be the page 4. Technically, it's not numbered though. It's not showing up.
Where we give them all the info.
But there's like the Zoom link, but in order for them to participate as a member, they need to come in person and speak. And that also doubles the forum as well, right?
Right, and that needs to be on it because that was a panic time last year. People thought the Zoom connection would count towards the quorum and it didn't. And I think Sam was down there in the rec center digging up bodies so we could get to 50 for our quorum.
What about
People
instead?
walking their dogs everywhere in the area and had them stop by?
And
about-
sign
Dog
in.
sign in? Sam, did you have the dog sign in? Paw prints?
No comment.
Could we just provide a link to our YouTube?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that.
Like,
Because
instead of Zoom, just
Yeah,
send them
just-
to the YouTube live stream. And or just say that like, in the asterisk, say, in order for members to participate, they need to show up in person to the dance barn. You know, along with the rest of all what's already in that sentence, I think all of
Yep.
it. And then,
YouTube.
please visit our YouTube channel in order to watch the live stream, but you will not be able to
Participate.
participate. to the YouTube channel.
And you will
'Cause I don't
not.
know that we can give them a direct link to the live stream, but we can give them the link to our channel
Channel.
and it'll be the first thing on there if it's live stream.
It's live streaming, correct.
Yes, and can we also say, if you do the live stream, you don't count towards the quorum? Something about come in person to count to the quorum. We need 50 bodies.
Be a live stream if it's YouTube. Gets rid of that.
Well, if you.
It
can-
doesn't
we-
count
we
towards the
live stream
quorum.
To YouTube, but they can't count as a quorum. Do we want to mention that though?
I think it's
I don't
important.
think it hurts. I mean, it's always a struggle to get.
You must be in person to count towards. the-
Have some Christian
There's
or whatever.
Hey, Joanne, come up with some language there for that one.
But yeah, I think that would make it just a bit more clear, I think. Does anyone oppose to that approach? Well, that was kind of the only thing I had. Linda, you had something?
Everybody needs to get their calculators out. Measure 1 is incorrect. Measure page 5 says this provides for assessment value of 5,164,000 164,719 plus 1,857,672 does not add up to 6,916,791. It adds up to $7,022,391. I think what happened is Joel popped in this 105,000 into the non-assessment revenue, and that changed everything. But then somebody forgot to change the bottom line. I think I'm right.
Think. Now let's subtract the. No, so I think part of that has to do with,
I just know that's the
did
wrong number.
adjust this is the number from our budget presentation.
Yep.
And then he did the 71,000. He made that adjustment from that vote we took on the trails things, like 71 or 72,000. So that's part of that. That brings it.
I'm just saying the
closer.
numbers down below in that 2024 consolidated budget, where he gives the 5 million and the 5,164,000 and the 1,857,000 does not add up to 6,916,791. Everybody just look at your calculators.
Yeah, the 105's in hot.
Don't wait.
105's out of it.
Sorry.
The 105's not being added in
If you tell everybody that that's gonna be the,
somehow.
Because you know what? Because I know what happened with that. I had them put it in because we did it as part of the budget proposal. And it wasn't in there, because it was kind of so tentative about, do we put it on the reserve study because it impacts the reserve study and everything. And I was like, well, since it's already proposed that way, this budget is presumed to pass. And so I had him include that in the reserve study. So that's
so anyway, you need
exactly
to-
right. He threw that line in there is
Well,
what it
the
is.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the 69,16,791, wherever it appears, would need to be increased.
to the $7,022,391. It'll be in the agenda measure 1. And it'll be in the measure 1 in the, just the language of the ballot language shall, at the top of page 5. And then you're gonna have to also change the consolidated budget revenue because even in that little box on that page is the wrong number.
Which page is that?
Page 5.
So I can make these changes tonight and then just shoot them out to everybody to see them in the morning before Joanne sends the changes to sends the document. And then, of course, this will come back next Thursday for the final proof too.
It's just, I would
Um,
hate to wait until that final proof because that would be some big changes.
Yeah, we were trying to get this out tonight. And like I said, unfortunately, we didn't have Joel. Like I said, he put this one piece, measure 1 together, and we just didn't have time to follow up on it. So, which is unfortunate. I didn't even catch that.
I have one other question that's gonna be dumb and you and AJ are gonna be able to answer me. I don't need Joel for this. We talk about, and when we talk about the reserve study, we talk about it's gonna be.
Mike, please.
That it's a level 3, that the 2024 budget level 3 reserve study. I thought the level 1 that the new people did went through the calendar year of 2023. So wouldn't this only be a level 2?
I had the same conversation with Joel. It's just the type of reserve study it is, and that's why it's called a level 3. It just means they didn't come out and do a visual. on it.
Neither do they for a two, though.
Yeah, but
Right.
it's just the way that they're doing it, you know, because we provide the updates via our managers. So there's a lot of updates on here with new numbers based on either engineering reports or managers reports. And so it's, you know, we were trying to hone in on things we started working on last year, but that's why it's a level 3. That's all.
And when we get them, then all these like where there's little X's now, all those will get filled out. This little thing here. and
But we had to do a level 1 every 3 years and the other ones were level 3s.
No, level
Well,
2, then
so-
level 3.
So what she's talking about is in the past, they
Change that.
well, it has to do with, they aren't actually, what they're doing is they're taking information from us and inputting that information. And that's why it's a level 3 as opposed to, so sometimes if they do a update themselves, even if they don't do a visual, but it's an update that they do, then it's like a level 2. But this is an update of just, they're doing inflation and interest rates, et cetera. They'll make those changes, but the actual changes to any other, you know, they look at our documentation, our engineering reports and everything, and it's coming from us. And so that's why they're calling it a level 3. Like I said, I asked the same question. So
I'm just going by what we've all, you know, when it's like, I understand it changes, but I knew somebody could answer that. for me.
Joanne, do you have anything to expand on that, or that's pretty much what you understood too from that?
Yeah, it's just they're different types. And we did a level 1 and now the type we're doing is a level 3. And so what AJ said is correct. You're required to do a level 1 every so often. And then in alternate years, you can do a level 3.
Or
But
a
some
level
people
2,
might,
'cause
or a
I'm-
level 2, but you can choose. It's not like it's
All right,
sequential.
okay.
That's all.
We just don't have to go one, and we don't have to go numerically.
Yeah.
The only other thing I have that has to do with things is on page 13, where we're talking about the options. It says beginning in 2024, increase annual wet slip use fees, an additional 1,200. It should say yearly $1,200 to provide, because it makes it sound like they're only going to spend that $1,200 once. And they're going to do it every year, correct?
Well, it says annual wet slip fees,
Oh. all right.
increase annual
That
wet slip.
there, that works for me. That's the only other biggie that I. I think the only thing we have to decide is what's gonna go on a ballot as far as voting on these advisory votes. You know, because we said we don't wanna go through the whole thing. So are you gonna write? Is it just gonna be choose more than one? You're gonna have the ballot that says Marina wet slip docks. And then you're just gonna have a circle and option 1, option 2, and option 3,
Right,
correct?
right.
I'm just saying they have to have that ballot ready to go tomorrow.
So that's why it says like right there next to like advisory vote, it goes ballot. So everything that's bolded, which shouldn't have bolded explanation, but anyway, everything that's bolded is the ballot. That'll go on the ballot. So this top part that explains what an advisory vote is, will be on there. And then
That's gonna all go on the ballot.
that part where it's so that people understand what an advisory vote is. And then everything that's in this bold, now the explanation won't go on there. So it's exactly what you're saying. The questions will go on there. And with a, you know, choose one, right? Choose a circle or whatever.
Yeah, just option 1.
Yeah.
That's all you're not gonna see all this additional language
Mm.
on the ballot.
On the
Not the explanation, no. But everything like Sonia said.
Above is, all this is gonna go on. Okay,
The
okay.
question with the option 1, 2, and 3 will go on the ballot.
I see what you're saying. I gotcha. You're gonna, I gotcha. See, I
Yes,
just- I would just
the
simply put-
explanation
I would
just,
simply say. option 2. I wouldn't write, but All right, you can do it.
This'll,
This will clarify and make sure people can't say, I didn't understand what I was voting for.
Yeah.
Are we doing away with the trails thing that we talked about since there's only 2 advisory votes?
So the board basically came to consensus and voted, whatever you want to call it, that we want to move forward with the funding of the plan. And so at that point, it almost doesn't seem like we need member input. We made the decision to go ahead and move forward. Once we get more information, like the board
Plan, then
next
you-
year,
then
yeah,
you
then
give
you
them
can get.
options. All right, I'm just saying AJ said he wanted to add that.
yeah,
That's
that
fine.
was kind of what we came to, I think, was since the board approved it, or it wants to move forward with the plan. Part of the scope of work for the plan is community outreach and everything like that, town hall stuff and things like that, and in that scope of work, so there'll be, you know, community input on building a plan, and then once you have the plan, then the board has to have conversations with the membership about how you fund it.
Gotcha, just wondered what the decision was. We also talked about, because of the way that Unilect is collecting all the ballots now, and we're not vetting in-house, that we would make a special point to put somewhere in the booklet a note to members that they need to understand what a member in good standing is before they vote. And, if that's the best way to put something like that, so it's there, that everybody gets that information. You used to be able to bring your dues current, but I don't even know the way it is now, if it would even be possible for someone to come the day of to vote, unless they were told at that time that you're delinquent and would then pay their dues, that would be about the only way that you could be a mail-in ballot, that's a person that mailed in their ballot would have no way to make up that payment.
No, Linda, it's the final list that's generated Thursday night or Friday
I
morning.
understand that it's just very different than what we
About-
used to do. That's why I'm saying we.
Yeah, it is different.
We agreed that we would put something in
The booklet.
the booklet to make sure that, that something in swear or whatever, to make sure people understand that.
So I don't see any reason why, like, like you can say something at measure 1 where, something like, all members, it's worded a certain way in the bylaws, something like all members, so we just use the bylaw underneath measure 1 that all members are allowed. And so I think we could say it right there, either above measure 1 and just pull that bylaw out. That'll actually explain, you must be a member in good standing to vote on everything, whatever it says, but all members can vote on the budget portion. So maybe we do that as a lead in into up above measure 1 and just put the bylaw. Then we're not worried about the
Way for
wording.
Everybody to get it, because if you put it on the website, if you put it on the website, not everybody reads the web. And if you put it in the views, not everybody reads the views. If it's in every single voter pamphlet that is required to be mailed to everybody, they've got that information. It needs to be like highlighted or made really clear to people so that they get the message.
I think that makes sense for pulling it out of the bylaws regarding everyone gets to vote on the budget, right? And then we have a lot of space because we're taking out all the Zoom link stuff and just putting the YouTube link. So perhaps we could just put it there in a bar. And it's right on that.
Right.
Yeah.
There'll be room.
So Sonia, Gail, what do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a couple of questions. One, I want to go back to the idea. I mean, AJ, I know that you feel that everyone should be an adult and they know how to vote if they're voters. But people are not always behaving like adults, and we know that. It's a fact of life. Could we rework the message on the envelope to say something like, Instead of, the message now that we came up with was stop, do not mail after October 20th. Now you're concerned about liability. Could that language be softened to say something like, we advise after October 20th, using the Dropbox to ensure receipt? I mean, to just leave it advisory, not a command.
Don't
Because
use
I
the
think
word ensure.
on the envelope, it will be more effective. I'd like to hear what you think.
I guess why put a date to it? Just put a statement that says, please make sure to mail your ballot in time.
But see, people don't know what in time is. Is the
But we don't
problem.
know what the time is either. That's the thing. And the post office can't even tell us like right now what the time is, and it could be different from like 1 week to the next week during the election.
Well, okay, let me put it this way. Supposing in the October reviews, I have a kind of a discussion of this and give some dates. I mean, I'm just, people will respond to a specific date, especially if it's on something they're about to do. And
I mean, if you're gonna give them what day do they get the ballots?
they're going to be billed the 27th. Now they're going to obviously be delivered at different times to
Like,
different
then I
people.
think if you're so intent on giving a date, then you should give one that's a bit almost on the obnoxious side of early.
Like what?
October, 10th.
Well, that's pretty obnoxious.
Cause that's like what someone said, putting a statement Tammy said it, like putting a statement in there that's like, get your ballot in early, vote often, whatever, that type of thing, like.
It's too fuzzy.
Just, I would say then you need to if we're gonna give them a date, we're gonna want to ensure that that date isn't gonna then detrimentally impact their vote either. Whereas if
Can we say something like, it is advised or it is recommended? Does that soften it so that we're not saying if you mail before that date and we don't get it, that we are somehow liable? If we just say, we recommend?
To me, it's like a fairness thing. Like you tell them a date and then their thing doesn't get there and then their vote doesn't get counted. That's a fairness issue. Like,
Well, if they do it
someone
early,
might be able to challenge the election over it, I guess, but I don't, not many people are hiring a lawyer to challenge the election.
nobody's got money to hire a lawyer in this community.
Like,
Well, I
just had a thought, though. If you have a date on there that's so early, someone could look at it and be like, oh, October 10th, that happened so long ago, I'm too late. I think that'd be more confusing.
That's why I
date
think
at
you
all,
just go with you need to have it, the language that's in the ballot measure or on that section A. Your mail-in ballot must be received by mail in Unilex post office box no later than whatever that cutoff date is. I think that's the cleanest
I
language.
would like to point out that
You're
problem
giving
never
them a hard
happened before
date,
last
like-
year.
it did not happen before.
And I think a
Mhm.
more effective method for trying to push for the get it mailed in early and often is just like a communication campaign. The views, social media, we can work with Joanne to put an announcement on the website too, about that type of stuff, don't underestimate how slow the post office can be. If you're going to mail it all the way to Unilac in California, do it early.
I think where we mention a date, and I think Unilec does too, that if you haven't received a ballot by, I think it's October 8th or October 7th,
Mhm.
that you need to contact them because something's wrong. And that happens with people here in the valley. I've looked at people's things and it's when they get it, when they give you the mailing address, it's the same thing, but for some reason, the post office, even though it's on the envelope, they don't get it. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I've seen people do that in the past. And even Unilect has called when people call to get replacement ballots and go, oh, we sent it to this. I don't know. It's like there's a little gremlin out there that just likes to torture us.
Well, I think the post office has always struggled for the most part. Well, at any rate, just make sure I understand, or I'll be talking to Joanne tomorrow. So AJ, you're recommendation is nothing on the envelope, something in the ballot, something in the views, something in the announcements, other means, just nothing on the envelope. Am I reading you correctly?
Well, not.
Well, I think if you're gonna put some on the envelope, it should just be what's also the same language we're using in the ballot booklet.
Kind of agree with you.
Like
Little
consistency is key. You know, and being consistent in that way and, you know. Like, I get that not everyone acts like a grown up or whatever, but they're still grown up, so that's,
A tough
you know,
love.
no excuses, like. You know, I wouldn't even let my children get away with that thought process, like,
Oh.
they're not even adults, like.
Are they only 2 or 3?
But,
You'd have to.
you know, like. Can't just act oblivious and then claim foul on yourself, like, that's just playing a victim. But that's my thoughts, I'm just one.
Well, my only last quick question, and I can do it if we're ready to adjourn or so forth, is Joanne, you want me to come over tomorrow at noon or so with the material? Shall I send it to you? How would you like to do that?
Well, I'd rather have it much earlier than noon.
I'm hoping that people sent me things this evening. I was waiting for 2 things, but sure. I can
If you
send
send
it
it
to
to me
you
at
right away.
noon, it probably won't meet the deadline. We should have it by 10.
Okay.
I think you should try to send what you got right away.
And you can
then
always
get started
add.
First thing in the morning, and if we have to throw in an extra picture or whatever, you know, like, that's pretty easy to do, but.
Well, I'm hoping to go home and find the 2 missing pictures. And then there's the question of this language, this announcement in the statement in the booklet.
So, okay, so the board's gonna agree to what's happening with that language tonight. So that won't get agreed outside of that board meeting, but you can add that stuff later, like while they're getting that proof ready, because hopefully we're gonna also we'll have the reserve study table. That's something Joel does when we get that final reserve report, and he does that table. I could do it. Linda will add it up and tell me I didn't add something right.
Then you'll really be in trouble.
You know, so I think I'm going to leave that part up to Joel. But so hopefully we'll have that by Monday and we'll be able to get that in there too. So, we'll do it next Thursday. But, yeah, so I think we just need to agree that I think we're in agreement that we're going to kind of stick with the same language that it has in here. And then the main thing is that you're just going to let Joanne know the correct dates and other information that needs to be in here. For like, you know, when to notify Unilect if you haven't received your ballot and when to return the proxy forms and things like that. Right?
I don't think those things are changing, actually. The proxy. And I think the date's already in the contract, the September 7th, or I'm sorry, October 7th.
Okay.
Okay, well,
And then,
I have a question for Joanne. Is Gil still off on Fridays?
Yeah, no, really.
Doesn't he do the mailing list? And isn't there a specific, like a certain way Unilect likes to get their mailing list done? That's probably in the contract.
And
I'm just wondering, because you're supposed to be able to send them the ballot and the mailing list tomorrow. That's all I'm concerned with.
okay, well, he's always available. So
Okay, that works. No problem.
yeah, I didn't know that they needed, I thought we did the mailing list after we approved the pre. Okay.
You need to read the contract.
No, I didn't. And I guess I did at some point months ago when we approved.
Can I make a comment about the mailing list? It's important to get the field that has both owners' names, man and wife. Because for the SGM, we just got the mailing field that had the one of the owner, the first owner listed. Then there's another field, and I can't remember the field name, but I've got it written somewhere, that is both husband and wife, like Jim and Nancy or whatever. And that for the SGM last year, we didn't have that. And it confused people. And that was just because it happened to be made, the mailing list went out without that particular field.
Well, we have a lot of people that have done the trusts too. And then the trust name goes in on that first thing, and then the names come after it. It would be, what do I want to say, the Bradley Trust, and it would be Linda and Stephen. But that's what it would, I'm saying that sometimes on the envelopes, you then see that it's a trust because that's that first line.
It's in whatever order Gil puts it in. The important thing is to request the field name that you want to use.
Okay, so the last thing we have to settle then on this topic is this section A on page 17, methods of voting. We just need to come to a consensus in one way or the other on that, and that's what Gail's asking. Gail wants, I'm suggesting you use that same first sentence in section A, vote by mail on the ballot.
We just need to change the date.
Yeah, whatever the right date. Yeah, the red thing, the red means it needs to be updated or verified. So, but that first sentence, that's my suggestion. I think that's consistent. It's clear. You know, and then I think any sort of communication campaign can be used to try to promote early voting. My opinion.
Put like flyers at the mailboxes, you know, where they put the,
Oh, that's true, where they have the little messages every now and then,
yeah,
follow the Rex.
yeah.
But yeah, my thought process is on the official documents, you're using that official language. And then in the communication campaign, you know, we can reference that same language still, but then add additional, you know, communication to it regarding the, you know, a potential date to get your thing mailed so it gets to California in time.
We usually get our ballots, just FYI, 3 days after they mail. If they mail by the 27th, most people here in the valley will have their ballots by the 1st of October.
So if we can potentially, so the views, a lot of times I think they print on Thursdays and sometimes Friday morning, but if we can, since that's mostly the election thing, we can probably get everything to them pretty quick, maybe by the end of next week, once we approve the proof, and that'll help them, you know, maybe they can print early and we can get that views out like a week earlier. Even that might be helpful. I mean, we can try, I can, you know, ask them if that'll help.
I used to send a great big file that just had everybody's picture, bio, and for board people, their vision statement. And then it would say Sam, Sonia, AJ, but then your picture was there, your bio was there, and but it all went in, each was in a folder and then went into a zip file. Easiest way to do it.
All right. So the suggestion on the table for me is to keep the language the way it is in section 8, use that same language on the ballot envelope, and then have a communication effort to promote early. Is anyone opposed?
So you're looking at the vote by mail,
Yeah,
and then you're looking at the paragraph under that.
just the first sentence in that your mail-in ballot must be received by or by mail in Unilex post office box no later than update date and time. And then, yeah, and then there's the communication campaign to go alongside that promotes an actual, like, you know,
Well, I'm heartened by the fact that Sonia says it only happened, it never happened before last year.
Yeah, Linda has those numbers, but I mean, it really wasn't that many that were coming in late. I remember looking at that last year, but there was a tremendous amount last year
Last year,
compared
but-
to previous years. It just,
We used to get far more when Sudden Valley mailed it out of here and it all came back to us. There's times where I would have my staff person send me an email and say, you have another late ballot. They float out there for months. Most of them come in by Monday because you have to do the report within that given amount of time. So you don't have a ton of time, but I'm saying when staff was there and they'd find some of those and then they'd put them in my box in the office and I'd go collect them and, just since they were so late, I would just simply keep them, but I wouldn't add them to that total that I created for the certification.
So there were no objections, to my suggestion then. And so what I'm suggesting is we're meeting next week. Again, we could just add an agenda item that's like communication plan for, and we can, that meeting, everyone should think about it and we can bring all of our communication ideas together at that meeting and put that. They're mostly pretty obvious, like flyer, mailboxes, or if there's any other creative ways we can consider all those options. All right, so there's no other issues then on the ballot. So we'll get those changes made that we discussed. Gail's gonna get with Joanne tomorrow morning to send over right away what you have, please, and then as things need to trickle in after, at least Joanne can get started. On
Could I just
edits.
quickly ask Joanne, do you want the candidate info in the boxes that you've created for the template?
No,
Or
just
just
send
you
me,
want the info?
yeah, just send me the info. So you,
Great. Well, it's all ready to go, minus 2 photos.
great.
I'll send it when I get home.
And that's pretty much the gist of what we have left to do on it before we send it tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, they don't have to send the booklet tomorrow. They have to send the ballot. And they have to send the mailing list. The booklet they need to send, tell me if I'm wrong, Joanne, by the 11th, on the 11th, correct?
Correct. But I did say that I would send information that we had in advance. So,
yeah, and we're going to vote on the proof
You're gonna have to
next
take it
Thursday.
Oh,
So,
that's-
and I'll send it to everybody.
and then once we have the final, and the next copy with everything, send it back around everyone for proofreading and stuff again prior to the next meeting. And I would say when we do that, don't necessarily wait till the meeting. If there's any edits, please just send them over an email with the whole board. That way we can just get that all compiled and hopefully a final copy, if there is any. Hopefully we've addressed all that already, but. All right, nothing else. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Yay.